Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this course about academic writing for medical affairs and healthcare professionals. I want to start with a simple question. When you hear the phrase academic writing, what comes to mind? Most of us immediately think about journal publications or manuscripts in prestigious medical journals. And yes, that's certainly one part of it. But if we stop there, we are missing the bigger picture. When we hear the phrase academic writing, the first image that comes to mind is usually a manuscript in a medical journal. And yes, publications are an important part of it, but academic writing is much more than that. Think of it as a professional language, one that allows us to communicate ideas, share evidence, and record insights in a way that is clear, precise, and trusted. Unlike casual communication, academic writing carries authority. It ensures that your message stands on solid ground, backed by facts and evidence. For professionals in medical affairs and healthcare, this is not optional. It's the foundation of credibility. Whether you're writing a protocol, drafting an internal memo, or preparing a value dossier for payers, the principles of academic writing give your work weight and impact. It's not just about writing, it's about being heard, understood, and trusted. Many people think academic writing only matters if you're publishing in the Lancet or the New England Journal of Medicine. But let me give you some examples of how much broader this skill really is. In medical affairs, writing touches regulatory submissions. Regulators won't approve a therapy because of a PowerPoint presentation or a nice speech. They approve it because the written dossier meets their standards of clarity, accuracy, and compliance. Internally, your leadership depends on concise, evidence-based written updates to guide strategy. Imagine if insights from 50 million social media interactions with key opinion leaders were written vaguely. No executive could make a sound decision based on them. And even in compliance, wording is critical. A poorly written claim in a medical response letter could expose your company to legal risk. For healthcare professionals, writing affects patient safety. Clinical notes, discharge summaries, protocols. If they're unclear, errors follow. So you see, academic writing is not just for the researcher who wants to publish, it's for all of us. In the pharmaceutical industry, especially within medical affairs, academic writing is not just a support skill, it is core to the role. For medical science liaisons, MSLs, for example, scientific credibility is everything. When documenting KOL insights, preparing scientific slide decks, or summarizing the latest trial results, poor writing can undermine the value of the science itself. For medical managers, the responsibility is even greater. They often translate complex clinical trial outcomes into regulatory documents, strategy papers, or payer dossiers. In these cases, it's not enough to know the science, you need to communicate it precisely, without ambiguity, and in a way that can withstand scrutiny. Every time you put words on paper, whether it's an email to a KOL, a response to a regulatory query, or a briefing to your commercial colleagues, you're not just writing, you're building trust. Academic writing makes sure your credibility and the credibility of your organization remains intact. Let's make this even more concrete. Regulatory communications. Every word in a submission matters. Regulators will challenge unclear sentences. Ambiguity is not tolerated. Writing here must be laser sharp. Value dossiers. These are documents that bring together clinical, economic, and patient-reported outcomes. They don't just show data, they argue value. Poor writing here can mean rejection by payers. Internal scientific insights. After engaging with KOLs, MSLs summarize insights. These summaries shape strategy. If they're vague, leadership can't use them. If they're evidence-based and clear, they can drive clinical development forward. Protocols and reports. These define the rules of research. A poorly written protocol can lead to confusion at trial sites, misinterpretation by investigators, and delays in study timelines. So you see, academic writing is not an occasional task. It's at the heart of almost everything medical affairs produces. One area that often gets overlooked is KOL engagement. Most people think of these interactions as verbal exchanges, but their impact depends on how well they are written down afterwards. When an MSL meets with a KOL and gathers insights, those insights must be documented with care. If they're vague, inconsistent, or written without evidence, they lose their strategic value. But if they are clear, structured, and linked to supporting data, they can influence company strategy, inform new research directions, and even support future regulatory discussions. Think of it this way. The conversation with a KOL is the spark, but the written insight is the flame that keeps burning inside your organization. Without strong academic writing, that flame dies quickly. With it, the insight shapes the future of medical strategy. Imagine meeting a KOL who shares concerns about patient adherence in a new therapy area. If you write this insight down vaguely, the doctor had some concerns. It's meaningless. But if you document it properly, citing the evidence they referred to, quantifying their concerns, linking it to other insights, now it becomes strategic intelligence. This kind of writing doesn't just inform your team. It influences research priorities, shapes medical strategies, and sometimes even prompts new clinical studies. In other words, what you write after a KOL meeting can be more important than what you said during it. For healthcare professionals, the role of academic writing is just as important. Patient safety relies on clear documentation. A poorly written clinical note can create confusion, cause misinterpretation, and even compromise care. Think of a discharge summary written vaguely. Patient stable, continue usual care. That leaves room for error. But if it's precise, structured, and complete, the next clinician knows exactly what to do. Writing here is a patient safety tool. Then there are clinical guidelines and protocols. These are often written by committees of healthcare professionals. The challenge? They need to balance technical accuracy with usability. Poorly written guidelines cause confusion and inconsistency. Well-written guidelines save lives. And don't forget case reports or publications. Many clinicians underestimate their value. A clearly written case report about an unusual side effect might alert the global community and change prescribing behavior. Again, writing is not just an academic exercise. It directly affects care. Every piece of writing has an audience. In medical affairs and healthcare, those audiences vary widely, and understanding them is crucial. For regulators, writing must be exact, compliant, and aligned with guidelines. For payers, the writing must be persuasive but evidence-driven, demonstrating value in a way that supports funding decisions. For scientific journals and conferences, writing must follow structured formats with transparency and rigor. For internal stakeholders, writing often needs to be strategic, summarizing complex science in a way that supports decisions across medical, commercial, and executive teams. Each audience requires a slightly different style, but the foundation, clarity, precision, evidence remains the same. Now let's think about who we're writing for. The audience changes everything. Regulators want precision and compliance. No fluff, no ambiguity. Payers need evidence packaged as value. They don't just want to know if the drug works. They want to know if it's worth paying for. Journals and conferences require structured, transparent manuscripts and abstracts. They judge both the science and the clarity of how it's presented. Internal stakeholders, your colleagues, leadership teams, cross-functional partners want clarity, brevity, and relevance. They don't have time to read 50 pages, but they need confidence that your 2-page summary reflects the evidence accurately. Every time we write, we need to ask ourselves, who is my audience? What do they need from me? Because that determines how we frame our message. Here's a really important distinction: scientific writing versus business writing. Both are vital for us, but they serve different purposes. Scientific writing is all about objectivity. It's evidence-driven, structured, and neutral. There's no room for personal opinions. You're reporting data, not selling an idea. Think of clinical trial protocols, manuscripts, or regulatory documents. The tone is serious, precise, and formal. Now contrast that with business writing. Here, the goal is often to persuade, to summarize, or to influence quickly. You may still rely on evidence, but the style is more flexible. Think of a medical strategy update for leadership, or a short internal email explaining the value of a new trial. You're still using data, but the voice is sharper, more to the point. As medical affairs or healthcare professionals, we often need to switch between these two modes. You might spend the morning drafting a highly structured scientific report, and in the afternoon, you'll condense those findings into a 1-page executive briefing. The foundation is the same, clarity and evidence, but the delivery is adapted to the audience. So, what's the big takeaway here? Academic writing goes far beyond journal manuscripts. It's not something that only researchers or academics need. It's a core professional skill for anyone in medical affairs and healthcare. For MSLs and medical managers, it's the skill behind regulatory documents, value dossiers, and evidence-based insights from KOL engagements. For clinicians, it's the clarity in patient records, the precision in clinical guidelines, and the impact of published case studies. At the heart of it, academic writing is about trust. When you write well, people believe you. They believe your evidence, they believe your recommendations. And that trust is what drives influence, whether you're speaking to regulators, payers, colleagues, or patients. So as you move forward in this course, remember, this isn't about learning how to be a better writer in the narrow sense. It's about strengthening your professional voice. Because in our world, the way you write can shape decisions, guide strategy, and ultimately improve patient care. Thank you for your attention, and see you in the next tutorial.